equivalence above the sentence level, as well as the collocations, which is what I mainly talked about in the last video. There's another thing which I think is really key for Chinese. It doesn't seem to come up very much in books, although they tend to touch on it, and that is um, what. Why is the thing there, and what is it? That is to say, the okay. I'll tell you the words: cotext and context. So, for example, in Chinese, they will put up sign. In China, there are signs up everywhere uh, that say things that an English sign wouldn't say. Like it will say something like "building a harmonious society." Okay. In English, you don't see signs that say stuff like that. In English, a sign's purpose is to tell you to do something or not to do something that you would otherwise do. So, you normally walk down a road. There's a road near me called Barnes Pickle, which I really like. You might be going down Barnes Pickle, and there's a sign up that says "No entry, building" or whatever, building works, and they're telling me not to do something that I would normally do because I would normally go down there, but now I can't. So the sign has that purpose. If it said "building a harmonious society," you kind of read it and who is, why, what do you want me to do? It it feels like when you see a sign, you expect it to tell you what to do or what not to do. And to a Chinese reader, it's different. And I don't know if that's actually sort of traditional Chinese culture, or if it's modern Chinese, or if it's a mix of kind of communism and East Asian philosophy. And um, but yeah, the signs appear all over the place that say things that are to a Western reader very alien, and they will kind of throw you out. And it's very hard to translate them in a way where the reader won't be kind of thrown off the document and they're like, why is this sign saying that? What's going on here? So, as a translator, something you sometimes have to do is you have to, for example, using my sign as an example, you could say you could translate it as China is building a harmonious society. Now it kind of sounds like, oh, okay, that's like a press release. It's advertising for the country. It's advertising for the state on the wall. I get it. It's an advertisement, right? Or you could say, at so and so builders, we are building a harmonious society. We hope you do so too. And again, suddenly you've got that context. Oh, this is an advertisement, or this is a promotional information, and it makes sense now. Now, when you translate it, you can kind of get away with some difficult grammar. Because if you've got something which is already alien and it's kind of weird that it's there, and then the translation uses words that aren't familiar, and you put them in together in ways that aren't familiar, you suddenly get this really alien sounding document, and that's what translatees partly comes from, right? So, a good question to ask ourselves is, what is the context of this piece of writing? Why is it there? Who's going to read it? Why would they read it? What would be the equivalent thing in my culture? It might be that it really doesn't matter what the sign says, but you just want to make sure the reader knows that there was a slogan on the wall, right? And in that case, maybe your best bet would be to say, well, I want the reader to know there's a slogan, and I want them to know it's 1983. Why don't I take the most famous slogan from 1983, something like, um, uh, you know, Mao Zedong, we hope Mao Zedong lives forever, or something, right? Even though that's not what it said, when the reader reads that, they'll go, "Ah, okay, a communist slogan. I get it. I get why that was there. I get it." And then they can focus on what you're really talking about, which might be what the character said or did or why they were there. Um, so obviously you've got to be very careful about doing that. But if you just get this bunch of really alien things one after another, by the end of the paragraph your head starts to spin, and it's one reason I don't like translated literature is I think they they're not brave enough quite often, translators. They don't change it when they need to, and just trying to make it sound accurate. Sometimes you don't want it to be accurate. You want the message to be the same. The point is that he walked past a sign and then he went on and said something to somebody. Why distract me with what the sign says? Why does it have to match word for word, what the sign said? And I think it kind of leads you to this broader idea that there's a spectrum, there's a sort of a range of things. If you imagine on one end you've got a cup and on the other end you've got a glass, And as you go along the spectrum, you've got glasses that look a bit like cups, you've got cups that look a bit like glasses, then you've got glasses that are made of plasticky stuff that isn't technically a glass, but it's not quite a cup either, and then you've got glasses with handles, and then there's this big grey area where one person would say glass and another person would say cup. So, how do we make sure when we're translating the words have just been kind of stuck on these spectrum and they're not put there for clarity. No one put the word cup and the word glass here on the spectrum to make it clearer to people. They're there because of historical reasons. Sometimes it's the same reason a video goes viral on YouTube, right? Very complex, no one quite understands it. Some languages the two words will be really close together, in other languages it will be over here. In some languages there'll be a word for one type of cup and then not another type of cup, and you can swap them in some languages, and some you drink one liquid from one and another from another, blah 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 blah. And that's true at the word level, right, which we've already talked about. But going up to the sentence level, we also have a range of why you would write a sentence and what the actual sentence is for. Is there an expression that you always use when you answer the phone, for example? Is there an expression you use when you start a letter, dear sir? Um, is there an expression you use after you sneeze? Do you say, oh, bless you, or wan sui, or whatever it is in different languages? And kind of understanding that it's not just words that have this spectrum, but it's sentences, whole ideas that have this spectrum of meaning. And sometimes you have to, just like at the word level, you have to replace them, you have to think about them, you have to do the same at the sentence level. And as I mentioned in the previous video, collocations are one thing that's really important, but also context and something called cotext. Looking at why the thing is being said is really, really important, and understanding that there's this kind of spectrum and we're on there somewhere. Alright, I hope that helps. Take care, guys.